Hello, my name is Marit. I am from Sweden. I've been painting watercolor since 2018, and it's really my passion to paint watercolor. In this painting, I will try to show you some of the techniques I use to enhance the light in this forest landscape. I leave some white for later. I paint yellow around them with the quinadrone gold, Gamboge Hue, and then all around that for the dark I will use Paynes grey mainly. Make sure everything is wet or damp. Have a water bottle handy to spray some water onto the paper. It's also important to not to have too much water on the paper, since you would like to avoid puddles. And now when I paint around the yellow, I try not to mix the yellow with the blue, just to avoid too much green. I really would like to have the contrast, to save the contrast. And how I do that is to not to mix too much water into the blue. I'm going to use a natural sponge that you have to clean thoroughly in between, so you don't get paint inside the white like I just did there. But it's easy to remove if your sponge is clean. My intention here is to let the light go through all over the painting. So I'm trying to create the light in this painting. I really like to experiment when I do watercolor. I think watercolor is a very welcome medium to do that. And if you painted watercolor before, you will also know that it's a bit unpredictable sometimes, the result, um, but somewhat predictable as well if you know what you're doing. And even if I have been painting for quite some time now, I think I still learn to refine the techniques, and I still learn the colors. And it's really a journey when you learn how to paint watercolor. I think it's important to experiment while you paint and not expect the painting to be perfect. It always invites you to new directions in a way. And of course, you get disappointed along this watercolor journey and you have to restart, or sometimes it feels like you're starting from zero. It needs a lot of practice. But, but once you do practice and you paint on a regular basis, I find anyway, that it gets easier. But if you take a longer sort of um, periods between your paintings, you also need to warm up and and repeat what you've learned before and do it again and again. And sometime along this journey, you will get surprised how much you learned. There's always a learning curve, and you will get frustrated. I get frustrated. Here I use somewhat dry paint that I sort of dot on to the semi-wet paper because it will get quite soft edges. And if you don't use too much water in your brush and more dry paint, it will sort of dilute itself on the paper that is already damp. So you can experiment and test and see how the brush is performing, so to speak. Here I will make branches that goes into the dark. I was quite pleased with this brush. It's a round brush, and nothing fancy or expensive. You can use really any kind of round brush, synthetic or non-synthetic. The idea I had doing this painting is now when it's January and there's been a lot of darkness here in Sweden. It's very dark in December, November, December, and January. The light is, however, coming back. But now is a time when I think a lot of people, especially in Sweden, long for the light, because we need the light. It's also very cold, so I wanted this warm beams of light coming through the branches of the trees. It was quite satisfactory to paint this. I use the golden or the quinadrone gold uh, that goes into the light, so it's like a reflection on the branches that goes lighter. Also, I want to emphasize the trees, not too much because I don't want the focus to go to the right so much, maybe from the light downwards. But it's nice to paint and give somewhat an impression of trees growing in the background. I use here very thin brush, very useful for the thin branches, or if you want to make fine lines. In watercolor, it's quite extraordinary. You sort of you paint the color and then you lift the paint off the paper just to let the light in. There's always a balance between light and dark. Of course, the values are important. You have to have values to give a depth to your motive. If you have any questions how I painted this painting, feel free to write a comment or your thoughts. This is the first time I actually speak in a tutorial. I'm sort of experimenting to see how that goes. Later on in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a little bit of a bokeh style, where we lift circles of light from the paper with a plastic stencil with circles. If you're interested in my art, you can visit my my webpage at artsovin.se. And I have an online gallery. I do sell my art on a Swedish site. But if you go to my homepage, you can see what I paint from year to year, and also paintings that are sold before. They are also on display in my gallery. Okay, this is my little plastic stencil wheel. They come in different shapes, rectangular, squares, and so on. So what you need here is this plastic stencil, and also you need a cotton bud or cotton pad, and you have to damp them down beforehand before you lift the color off within the circle. It will sort of enhance the light even more, and it's called Bokeh style. It gives a very soft light impression. Be careful not to have too much water in the cotton pad, or else the water will sort of get underneath the plastic. That's why I dry the paper some after I've done a little circle, because there will always be a little bit of water underneath, and the paper needs to be totally dry. When you do this technique. Some colors stain more than others. It's like some reddish colors usually stain a little harder, and I found that the Paynes grey stain quite a lot into the paper. Of course, it depends what kind of paper you have. I have a 300-gram paper. It's Saunders Waterford is my favorite watercolor paper at the moment. I think it suits my kind of painting techniques very well. It can be handled. The paper is not too sensitive. It is also 100% cotton, which is also preferable when doing watercolor, I found. So really, you decide how many of these circles you want in your painting. And when you think it's done, it's done. I think this came out quite nicely. Hope you enjoy this tutorial. Hope to see you again.